Okay, welcome back. We are going to do a really fun one that I always get super excited about, which is we're going to start talking a little bit about first contact for Earth. And meaning by that is we have to be pretty naive to think we're the only things out here. As Dayna and I know, we definitely know we're not the only things out here because we have this beautiful connection that we've grown to a point in understanding and knowing. But we all have that connection. It's called our intuition. It's called, our natural psychic abilities. It's all energy. Everything is energy, including ourselves. So when we're talking about first contact, we're wanting to mention it. And I know there's a lot of other intuitives, a lot of other channelers, a lot of other people talking about this already. And really, it seems to be like 2024 hit, and all of a sudden, like this shift happened where more and more intuitives started talking about this first contact that's going to start to happen within the next. They're showing me 5 to 6 years. So on a whole basis for Earth, this first type of contact may very well start happening within the next 5 or 6 years. So there was some very interesting information I came about one time in a meditation asking a little bit more about why we haven't had first contact yet, necessarily on a larger basis that more and more people know about. We do know that obviously most people now are starting to question about what the governments actually know, what's actually being hidden, because there's obviously a lot of information that is being hidden about aliens or interstellar people or whatever you would like to call them. I said interstellar people because I feel like that's how the Andromedans wanted to be addressed, with interstellar people. But it's this beautiful space of knowing that obviously there's more life and energetic beings that exist outside of us. And yes, of course, they've always been here. I mean, there's been evidence that's starting to come out from particularly the US government. I believe your guys' government is the largest, probably for some of the stuff when it comes to UFOs, the quote unquote aliens, interstellar people, whatever you want to call them, other beings, other life forms, ships, even, So it's like this space that it seems to be the US is kind of congregated and held a lot of those secrets. I don't know of much that's come out of Canada other than sightings in the sky. So there's been documents that have been released lately from the US government that were highly secretive before and now are being let go out into the public about UFO sightings. People are now starting to talk about some of their experiences behind military, behind government projects, all these things. I started giggling. I said, "Whoa, how come it's all coming out now? Like, why now?" Right? And so I did. I did a deep meditation with it on my team because, when I got questions, that's where I go. And the first thing they started to show me was that there was a bit of a timeline given. So at one point in time, a long time ago, there was beings that actually came to Earth that tried to help the governments. They said, "Okay, well, we'll give you, some options. These are what we can do and help and give you certain technologies or whatever to help your race grow." And they were all denied. Actually, the governments denied them. This was all over the world. It wasn't just in the US. So in which these beings then decided, okay, well, we're going to have to go through individual people that are coming into Earth to hopefully start to expand and grow this species called human, So it shifted a bit there. And they ended up giving the governments a timeline and said, if you do not release certain information that we know you have about different beings, different, ships, things that have kind of landed here that you've covered up and taken for yourselves to research in, uh, we will do this on our own. We will take our own into our own hands here and start showing ourselves more often to the people on Earth if you're not willing to release this information. So I'm gonna let you take over for a hot second here. I got something to my computer.
Okay. Uh, yeah, well, and we're talking about first contact in the sense of being actually able to see them in some sort of representative of a physical, energetic form. And as opposed to like I've definitely interacted with beings here actually physically on the planet, but more like their consciousness presenting in more of a human form. Um, However, we're actually talking about a first contact where they are showing up and presenting in a kind of more authentic to their being in physical form off planet, let's say, off this planet. um, and so it's interesting when you take a step back, and if you're tuning into other psychics and channelers and all of that stuff, right? Like, you've heard, you understand that we've been through the experiences that we've been through on this planet are all for a purpose and a reason, even as non-preferable as they've been. Like there is we are going in a specific direction, right? Like, and it's all part of the ascension experience and coming into the collective oneness and all of that stuff. So like, yeah, it's just like a next step, and all of that stuff that happened was preparing us and preparing hopefully most of the collective and population to question everything and to really start tuning into their higher selves and their truth, and doing the work as we talk about, right? Like we think about the past few years and what we experienced on a global level, like nothing could have made this everybody on this planet do their work unless it was something similar to that, right? Like it didn't have to be that exact experience, but like, yeah, global pandemic, let's keep everybody in their homes and make them look at themselves, right? Like, so you just have to take a step back and kind of look at the wider picture and what's happened and where we're going, and we have been being prepared, and we are coming into a place where, ready or not, it's coming. And so like it's even part of why we're doing this podcast. It's why we have our individual programs and businesses and why we do what we do. And we talk about discernment, alignment, surrender, like all of these things are getting us to the place of um, coming into this first contact and being able to trust and discern. And right, like it's necessary to have these other pieces to get here.
Oh, absolutely. Because if we didn't, boy, we'd be in some hot water, right? I mean, there's a reason why they've never fully shown themselves before for that reason. We can be a violent species, right? If we feel threatened, the first thing a lot of us will go to is violence. And that is coming from a place of fear. So in which we need to be able to transmute our fear, have an understanding, have the awareness, have the surrendering into understanding that there's a larger picture here that we are being prepared for. And the biggest thing I find is through my connections, in meditation, even and communicating with my own team, a lot of it came back to one, why would any species want to come land on your planet when there's a high chance that you're going to take them as hostage or kill them? Touche, right? Like, why would you want to? But at the same time, they are like, you are all evolving as a species as well. Hence why, yeah, the hard stop was needed. It was a preparation because at some point in time, we are going to be the ones out in space. We are going to be the ones coming face to face with other beings because we're now leaving our home planet. We are now exploring more on a basis of what is actually out in the galactic universe, and we have to be very naive to think that we're just going to be the only ones floating out around there. Earth's a very young planet in this solar system and in this universe, so it's naive to think that we could just be the only ones here. So in which why they're wanting to do first contact with us on our own planet to show us there's some very amazing beings out there that want to help us. But we also have to get to that stage where we're ready to receive it. We need to come together as a collective one again and not fight each other. We can't be resorting to violence every time we get a little threatened or feel a little fear. So there's definitely a lot of work that still needs to be done, 100%. Yes. Is there going to just be some spaceship that's going to just drop off a bunch of alien beings someday? Probably not to that extent. When they show up, they're going to present themselves to the people that are ready for it first. And now, is that starting to become more of a collective? Absolutely. There is a little bit of a divide starting to happen where more and more people are getting more prepared to be able to have that experience and not freak out by it. But you're also going to have the other side of that coin where some are just not going to be ready yet at that point in time either. So that's why some people call it divide between New Earth, Old Earth. The New Earth people and the ones that are evolving and growing and getting to that stage where they're ready are going to be the ones to have that experience. If you're not ready, you're not going to have that experience, right? So it's just one of these things that I find so many intuitive and channelers, as we kind of mentioned, are kind of talking about different aspects of this or particularly right on this, because I find so many of them are like, you need to be prepared. Everybody needs to start talking about this more so we understand that it is coming. It's not 10 years out. Like what I keep seeing right now is 5 or 6 years. That could shorten depending on how much faster we kind of grow and evolve here on Earth as a human species. So I think it's extremely exciting because, I mean, obviously, Dan and I have done a lot of work. We understand a lot more through the realms. We understand that our connections are maybe a lot stronger than some people's in understanding that, but it's not that you can't either. You know, it's getting to know yourself first before you're going to be able to even feel comfortable with opening up that door to even exploring an energy that exists in another being in the universe. So it's step by step. They're not going to say, you know, just they're not just going to throw this all on us and be done with it, because they can't. They also don't want to lose their lives. They also don't want to be captured for whatever reason. So it's just a very interesting base that seems to keep coming out of the governments, though, and all this information is starting to get released about these UFOs and these sightings. And not only that, I'm starting to find more and more people are starting to willingly talk about their own experiences sometimes with their own sightings, or if they've seen something, or maybe they did have some sort of, you know, contact through a bush, or you know, something happened. I've had some explain them to me as orbs, colorful orbs. But she said to me she felt like something had actually touched her face, like very gently touched her face. And of course, she's like, then I freaked out because I was like, okay, someone snap a picture because I don't know what is right next to me, but there's something next to me. And they took this picture and it was this glowing pink orb that was like not far from her face. It was just over here, right? So, and in that moment, she said, I didn't feel scared. I was just curious as what the hell that was, right? Because again, us being physical beings, we think we should be able to touch it, feel it, see it, then through the physical eyes, when really it's an energy, right? So we feel it, yes. We know it's kind of there, but it's not showing up in the way that we've all kind of been taught this is how the world works, right? So it's just really interesting. And I find more and more people are starting to talk a little bit more about maybe some experiences they've had, or if they've seen something in the sky or these things, right? But it's also recognizing what they felt in those moments as well. So it's an
Yeah, and
interesting.
that's yeah, it's really interesting because I they're showing me like this human that I know that does like galactic astronomy, or no, photography, astrophotography. There we go. That's the term. And I have some pictures where I have orbs around me, and I have specific like clear orbs where you can very clearly see a being's face in it. And this person's like their take on it is lens flare for the photography, right? So, and this is a human who doesn't want to feel the feels, very much does everything to dull and escape the feels, all the normal human stuff, right? And it's like, we as humans egos are explaining things away, but it's like you're not crazy and those things are there. And yeah, so that was one of the things that they were showing me while you were talking. There was another thing, but oh, that's what I wanted to come back around to. Um, with all of this, like, okay, so you're hearing this is happening, and you're like, how do you prepare for this? Like, what's the deal with this? Well, you prepare for it by doing your work around your own fear and your own survival mechanisms and patterns and trauma and wounds. And you like we were just talking about a few days ago this aspect of like retreats, and why are all these people out there doing why are there so many weekend workshops, why are there so many retreats, why are all this, and you've probably been drawn into them, and thinking about the sacred container that's created in those spaces and the trust and the connection that's developed with other humans that you're brought into from around the globe, right? And the connections and just safety and security and the work that's done there and how you walk away from that. It's like we have to build trust and connection between individuals as humans, both in our communities, outside of our communities, and around the globe. We have to understand that the person on the other end of the world is no other side of the world is no different than us, really. And we can come together and we don't have to be afraid of each other. And we really like, these are the constructs, paradigms, and dynamics as to like why you see the things happening you do, why you see the changes that you do, why you're drawn to go do this thing, that whatever it is, for whatever reason, right? Like there is a purpose and reason, and it's in those sacred space containers that are being created, that's creating that collective energy that's going to allow these first contact situations to happen. So, and it's like, if you're wondering, well, how do I prepare for this? It's like, you work with one of us, or like, or you work with another psychic, you work with another intuitive, you follow your alignment and your inspiration and your intuition to the people and places you're drawn to. It's like, I'm formulating an experience with me that's called the Galactic Transformation Experience with Dayna Grace. Like, what are we doing there? We're getting you ready. That's what we're doing there. It's like, so it's out there, it exists. And yeah, you have more thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody's individual journey is going to be different, and where you're going to feel more prepared as you do more of the work for yourself. And we're not saying every single person has to meet a being at some point. It's just not if it's not something you really want to do at all, it's not, you don't have to. Again, that comes back to that free will. I think on a collective though, because it's going to come, I mean, it's already happening, right? There's already things being released in the news. There's already things being talked about, the UFOs, the things that the government's been hiding, and more and more people are coming out and starting to talk about this, right? So I think what they also want everybody to just be prepared for is even that aspect of it. So if that scares you, even just knowing those things, I mean, that's a fear you're going to have to start working through for yourself. It's not saying you're the one who has to come into contact with these beings, but understanding it's going to happen at some point on a worldly basis. So if you're more prepared in knowing it's going to happen on a worldly basis at some point, it's going to get talked about, right? It's going to hit the news someday. It's going to be like, everybody's going to think it's some sci-fi movie at first, probably, because they'll be a little unsure. But when you start to get the proof that it's actually happening, it's real, and people are okay with it, and that these are loving beings, they want to show themselves, they want to help us prepare, because it won't be a super long time before we're out in space, right? So we need some kind of preparation in that aspect as well. If you're here to live to see that long, I don't know if any of us will actually see the new spaceships, that will take us out of space. I think that's a little ways off yet. But to have first contact, I think is going to be a lot sooner than a lot of people realize. So even if it's being talked about, right, if that scares you, that's a piece you need to work through for yourself, because at some point it is going to happen, so
Yeah, and
doing
not
your own inner
only
work.
yeah, not only that, like there's an invitation to the fact of like, we're not actually evolving, we are re-evolving. Like, we have already been in the place that, like, we came from this way of being, we kind of devolved into the humans and duality and all the experience that we're have, and we're essentially re-evolving, we're remembering, right? It's a re situation, and that can be a challenge, right, for a lot of people to, I mean, even talking about evolving period can be a challenge for people, not even to add on the fact of like, actually we're re-evolving, like we just forgot who we are and as beings on this planet. And yeah, so interesting. So this is just part of the re-evolution.
Yep, it's the evolution of our consciousness, this time, and that's come up many times. It's an evolution of consciousness time. It's not our physical bodies necessarily changing anymore. This time, it's an up-leveling of our consciousness. It's remembering exactly that, who we are, and choosing to evolve into a state of being that we already knew existed from our soul levels, right? And so that's the next step. I mean, every planet on Earth, every planet, including Earth, other planets, all these things, they always had to go through their own steps and motions, and that's just where Mother Earth has chosen to be. The only beautiful, that's big difference on our planet, is our planet herself has chosen to be in a different vibrational set point. And that also is something very new. That's never really happened anywhere else in our universe, as far as I understand it to be. So we are excited by a lot of other beings. We're being watched very carefully to make sure that we're also okay. They want to make sure that we're supported and being okay with all these changes that are taking place on Earth as well. So it's fun, and I think more or less like what I get from them is like, be excited about it. It's okay to be excited about it. Don't think that there's just going to be this spaceship that comes in and ruins your entire world, because again, there's definitely protection being put in place and has always been in place around Earth, so that doesn't happen. because they just gave me the funniest analogy. It was like, yeah, everybody's gonna think back to when the dinosaurs came, the asteroid hit, and that was it. It took them all out, right? But again, it was for very specific reasons that actually happened. Is the vibration on Earth? It wasn't what it was meant to be, right? So naturally, it was going to get cleansed in some way, and that's what happened. But they're promising that's not exactly what's going to happen this time. What we want to have happen this way is a cohabitation where you start to understand that there's more here. So welcome to the years leading up to first contact, because that's about where we're at. Do your work for yourself. If it scares you, that's okay, but work through the fear of, why does it even scare you in the first place? Do you have connotations? Do you have these stories in your head? Do you have, some beliefs maybe that were from other people that they were just simply scared of it, right? Or is there something deeper there that you're just covering up with the excuse of being afraid of it, right? So there's a lot to it, but that's why we're also being given time. They're doing this slowly, cracking in the door, just one step at a time. And eventually, that'll be a part of our new way on Earth. It'll be accepted at some point in the future where we probably will cohabitate with other beings that choose to just drop in, right? And be a part of whatever we got going on. And we will do the same thing when we end up out in space. So
Yeah, and along that note of like the rapidness or the slowness, the frequency with which this unfolds, there are gonna be some people who are trailblazers. Like some of your souls, like mine, like Dayna's, signed up to like be on the forefront of this thing, that thing, or the other thing, and like that's also not everybody, and that's okay. It doesn't make anybody any better, any different, anything. It's just like, okay, back to that alignment piece, like recognize who you are and look for people that can help you, that are on the same track, if you will, of what you're doing here and how it's going. And like, it doesn't matter which track you are on, they're all equally important and necessary for what we're doing. So yeah, that was it.
no, it's true. We all got our own piece of the puzzle for a reason, because we need to have a unique piece to make a whole. And so, in which again, that comes back to the collectiveness of one human consciousness, right? So play your role with where you want to be. What do you want to experience? Create what you want to experience. If you don't want to meet or be a part of this, you don't have to be, but you also still got to prepare yourself enough to know that you are going to hear about it at some point in time. So again, we're all here doing different things and wanting to experience different things. Yes, some of us have chosen some bigger, more I guess intense paths, maybe is the best way to put that. Like Dayna and myself, there's definitely been things that I know we've gone through that not everybody will, because it's just not the path they've chosen to come in here for. We're all on different terms, different levels, and again, that relays back to everything else out in the universe too. Everybody's here for different reasons. There will be certain beings that want to come and help us do certain things, and then it might be someone else that comes in to do something else, right? It's an evolution, but it's also working together. It's a co-creation. So, but we have to learn how to co-create with ourselves and this world first before any of this can happen. So hence back, don't panic. It ain't happening anytime right soon, but it definitely is something they want to start preparing us more for and start talking about. So I'm excited as hell about it. But that's just me, my opinion. And I hope everybody else somewhat got some fun information out of this for yourself, and can take little bits and pieces and run with it. And if it excites you, great. If it terrifies you, that's also okay. We just got more work to do there. That's all. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.